restless dreams. I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
Human psyche is a weird, dark place, and most of the time we spend our energy, our days running away from that place, be it aware or unaware. Most of what we do in our daily lives takes us away from that place, from ourselves. As Carl Jung famously once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. This is what makes the original Silent Hill games so special. At first glance they might seem just like any other horror game, but they are an exploration of the inner world of the main characters. That is why, despite being so old, they are not forgotten. You see, if a work of art holds undeniable human truths, that piece of art lives on for a very long time. In fact, it becomes practically immortal. That is why mythologies of different cultures still live on strongly to this day. If you read between the lines, they hold core, never-changing truths about humans and the reality we live in. Even if you don't understand these works of art to their full meaning, your unconscious and subconscious mind still understands their value deep inside you. Most stories shy away from these truths, since using them requires the writer to have already experienced or at least observed them in some way, which makes a far more difficult job than writing an easily understandable literal stories. Let's take a look at how a horror game that is 23 years old has managed to capture the core of male psyche. In Silent Hill 2, you play as James, a 29-year-old man who is searching for his dead wife, because he received a letter from her 3 years after her death. This can be interpreted as an old unresolved conflict pulling James in for him to figure himself out. He travels to Silent Hill, which is James's and his wife Mary's special place.
This whole town was our special place.
The town, despite being their special place, is completely run down and full of monsters, both inside the buildings and outside on the streets. This is how James's psyche is representing itself to him. A town once functioning, beautiful, filled with great locations and memories, turned into ruin, taken over by chaos. A chaos that James tried running away from. During your stay in this town, you will meet many characters, which all represent a part of James, which deserves their own separate videos. I want to focus on one of these characters for now, which is Maria. Before we begin with Maria, you must understand James's current state of mind. James is searching for his dead wife because he feels an extreme sense of guilt towards her, and he wants to make things right. Although it is not clear what exactly happened between them, it is something like this. Mary was overcome with a deadly illness and had to be in the hospital for the last 3 years of her life. This is obviously devastating for James, for more reasons than one. First of all, he is deeply in love. It is the person which he adores the most, and their life together is coming to a sudden stop. Secondly, James is really young, and because of this, we can safely assume he has a lot of dreams and desires that he wants to experience, but this sudden development in his life also puts his life on hold. If you combine these two reasons, a disaster occurs. When we love someone, we want the best for them, and especially for men, we want to take care of them. And many times in relationships, especially in early stages, there will be a conflict between a person's own wants and interests and what the morally right thing to do is. In James's situation, this is amplified by 100%. He knows that Mary will die, but he needs to stay with her, look after her until the bitter end. That is what the conscience calls for. That is the right thing to do. But this process will take 3 years, and for those 3 years, he will be bound to a ship doomed to sink. He will have little to no freedom to neither express his feelings or to go out and experience what he desires. He's basically stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because of this, his emotions are messed up. He probably can't think straight, and by the end of it, it is a total mess. He couldn't be there for Mary the way he wanted to, yet he also couldn't leave her. He never managed to express his feelings, because it seemed impossible to say anything negative to someone who was already dying. He probably felt a lot of guilt, anger, and sadness all at the same time. To better understand James, think of any relationship you have or had, and think of the things you felt many times but couldn't say or express. Maybe you felt that it wasn't right. Maybe you thought that your feelings were evil or wrong. Or maybe the person was simply not available to receive what you felt. Now amplify it. With the context set, let's move on to the inner world of James, Silent Hill. Maria is a woman who just looks like James's wife Mary. They are identical, but their character is different. Maria represents something called anima in James. Anima is a psychoanalysis term which was introduced by Dr. Carl Gustav Jung. Anima is the feminine principle that exists in every man. It means she who animates. There are a lot of aspects of the anima. It can take many shapes and forms, since it literally represents the soul and life itself. For Maria, however, you can think of anima as the principle that makes James want and act. It also represents what James thinks of an ideal woman, which we will get into. You first encounter Maria near the Tolka Lake, which in one sense is also the lake of death, where many ships sank and many lives were lost. This bears significance since anima in its shadow self can be like a huge body of water that slowly pulls you in, separates you from reality, and if you are not careful, you might never get out. When I first encountered Maria, I had this sense of comfort. She seemed like a denizen of this abyss, comfortable with living here, unbothered by the monsters. James at this point and time is desperately stumbling on to find his wife. He has lost his purpose and way in life, and when he encounters Maria, he mistakes her for his wife, and Maria mocks him lightly for it.
Mary? No, you're not.
Do I look like your girlfriend?
As I said before, anima is she who animates, and to make James animate, or to move and act, she looks just like his wife, what James wanted his wife to be like. Maria is also very sexually provocative. One of the first things James notices that makes him realize that she is not Mary is her clothes.
Can't believe it. You could be her twin. Your face, your voice, just your hair and clothes are different.
My name is Maria.
But even after that, Maria acts and says stuff that makes James uncomfortable. Until the end of the cutscene, Maria can be seen as a confident, sexually strong woman, but at the very end, she quickly switches to being more traditionally feminine and acts as if she is someone desperately in need of help.
You're coming with me?
You were gonna just leave me?
No, but...
With all these monsters around?
No, I just...
I'm all alone here. Everyone else is gone.
Then really quickly switches back.
I look like Mary, don't I? You loved her, right?
She clearly says what she says to appeal to the core emotions that James possesses. She manipulates James to latch onto him because she has a lot to teach James. Remember, every character in this game is a part of James, so any dialogue can be interpreted as an internal dialogue. By saying what she says in this cutscene, Maria is already forcing James to face his own guilt and emotions. The sexual dissatisfaction that James had felt can be clearly understood with this next scene, where James is chasing after Laura, but she went through a really tight alleyway and James can't fit in there to follow her. He asks Maria if there's any other way, and Maria, in a playful manner, points to a door. This door leads into a strip club called Heaven's Night. However, James can't get in since the door is locked. How can he get in when he can't even face what he had felt inside of him? Accepting one's shadow self, especially that which is related to the sexual desires, can be a long and tough process. Maria here allows James to enter this club because she has the keys. Why wouldn't she? She is a representation of James's sexual desires to some degree after all. As men, our sexuality starts at a really young age, at an age where we don't even know what it is and what it means. As we grow up, we learn about eroticism and sex, but we learn them through observation. We learn them from the people that experienced it. We learn them from videos online or any sort of content we consume, be it TV shows, movies, animes, games, or pornography. But there's a problem. First of all, no adult really sits down with us and teaches us what it is. Adults shy away from this topic for a number of reasons which are all illogical. Also, most of them are clueless about the subject, since they rolled with whatever their culture at the time provided them. Secondly, in our current day and age, men are not taught the ways in which they can understand, process, and express their emotions. Especially nowadays, everything is so extrematized that some part of the public will always reject where you are coming from. Not because it is outrageous or absurd, but because people are so lost in their ideology and their own little world that they refuse to stop for a second to observe objective truths. Rejecting reality and clinging on to illusions and acting like they are just and moral has become the norm. Striving to be as moral as possible has damaged us in a great way. But that is a topic for another time.
It doesn't matter who I am. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real.
We begin to indulge in fantasies, and you can imagine it as a man crafting an idealized woman in his mind, through whom he fulfills his desires.
How do you see the anima manifest in life?
On a primitive level, it appears in men generally as an element of romantic, unreal, mostly sexual fantasies.
This imaginary woman also has a lot of characteristics that the man unconsciously want. So what happens when we start to search for this imaginary idea in the real world? Well, first of all, we don't think that we are searching for that idea. We are looking for a partner. When we find someone close enough and we start getting a faster heartbeat, we try our luck. If we get together with them, we unconsciously project our desires and thoughts, our anima onto that person. This is quite common in someone's younger years, but it can also be seen in adults and old people alike. This doesn't just go away. You need to work on it and mature to see the reality without any lenses. If we don't work on this problem, eventually and most likely, this will cause our romantic relationships to fall apart. Because everyone wants to be seen and heard, but if your partner is only seeing what they want to see and forcing you to act that way, it won't end well. So Maria having keys to a strip club is very symbolic here, because a huge part of Maria is obviously about James's unfulfilled sexual desires that he locked away because of his loyalty towards Mary. As his sexual desires fed his anima, his resentment toward Mary grew and started a conflict between his morality and desires. It is not a surprise that after Heaven's Night, they go to the hospital and surprise surprise, Maria feels ill and has to lie down in bed. So what happened in real life is kind of happening again in Silent Hill. They were just inside Heaven's Night, a place full of desires and life. But now they are in the hospital, a place for people that are sick and dying. It is safe to say that James doesn't like hospitals, since his wife had to spend 3 years in one. On top of this, now Maria, a woman who just looks like his wife, gets bedridden as well. This time, however, James has a mission to accomplish. He must find Laura, so he continues on by himself. After a series of events, Maria reunites with James, but James once again mistakes her for Mary and is disappointed right afterwards. Because of his response, Maria gets furious with James.
Anyway, I'm glad you're alive.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? You don't sound very happy to see me.
Which still does not invoke any real emotions in him. And James actually acts just like any man who doesn't care about what their partner is saying, but has to act like he does.
You couldn't care less about me, could you?
No,
He still can't see what is in front of him. In the next scene, Maria is killed by Pyramid Head, right in front of James. This is very significant. Pyramid Head is not our topic, but he is the shadow self of James, a self which represents all of James's bestial desires, so this scene is a direct representation of what pure lust and desire does to the feminine heart. Well, this is a part of James's guilt, because in the real world, his shadow self slowly but surely invaded his heart and made him resentful towards his wife.
I know about you. You didn't want her around anymore. You probably found someone else.
Now for him to understand and process his feelings, and to make him face his guilt, it is happening again in his inner world. It is a sacrifice for James. Obviously James at this point does not understand this, and this pattern will repeat itself until he does understand it. Our psyche repeats itself over and over again until we understand what we need to understand and move on. If we don't, we become stagnant and take the cycle to our grave. This is true for every aspect of our life, so I would highly recommend you to observe the patterns of your life. If you see a pattern repeating, you might need to figure out why it is repeating to resolve it. The next time we see Maria, it is arguably the most significant one. In the depths of the depths, James comes across a cell. Inside the cell is a hospital room with Maria in it. James can't reach Maria because of the bars separating the two. The door of the room has a number, which is 208, the same number of the hospital room that Mary was staying in. Remember, Maria is an idealized version of Mary. James is surprised to see Maria because she was killed. But Maria has no recollection of those events happening and asks James if he is confusing her with someone else.
James, honey, did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else?
After that, she mentions James and Mary's past, which she shouldn't know about. This confuses James further, and one part of him starts to think that she is Mary. Maria coldly says,
I'm not your Mary.
Let's watch the last part of their interaction.
So, you're Maria?
I am. If you want me to be.
All I want from you is an answer.
It doesn't matter who I am. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real. Don't you want to touch me?
I don't know.
Come and get me. I can't do anything through these bars.
Okay. Stay right there.
Maria is clearly representing everything that James wants here, but she is a prisoner behind bars. Prison's name is guilt. James can't get to Maria because he's not yet dealt with his guilt and can't be truthful to himself. So the bars represents an obstacle which still stands between James and his desires and his truth. Maria is in the hospital room that Mary died in, but she is alive and well and even playfully provocative. This might be what James wanted to see years prior when he walked inside that hospital room. He is fantasizing again. He is projecting what he wanted from Mary to Maria. After a while, James reaches the room that Maria is in. But before going there, another character, Angela, confronts him about his true feelings and desires yet again.
I know about you. You didn't want her around anymore. You probably found someone else.
With James reply with this.
That's ridiculous. I never.
James is starting to accept his true feelings. But when he reaches room 208, he finds Maria dead once again, laying on the bed. James' unconscious mind is creating the same scenario that made James stuck in his own world so that he can understand and get out of it. This is not about Maria, but I feel like I have to mention this. After Maria's second death, James finds his own grave dug and the bottom can't be seen. The game asks you if you want to go down. This is very symbolic, as to finish his journey, James needs to die. What is James anyway? Or what are we anyway? We are a collection of ideas and knowledge we picked up along the way, which created our character, with the name our parents gave us. We were molded into being, so in a sense, we are far away from our own truth when we act in accordance with what we know and learn throughout our life. Obviously, this is not always the case, but if you are repressing your feelings, intuition, and emotions because of the character you have created, it is the farthest place you can be from reality. So James here is starting to finally let himself go in order to find the truth and heal. It is also important to note that this choice comes to us naturally at our lowest point. We sometimes choose not to let die what needs to die, and continue on with a dead weight, and so the silent tale repeats itself. Two encounters with Maria remain. James reaches a room where there are two pyramid heads and an upside down Maria bound to a bed frame. Maria is going to die once again, but this time it is ritualistic. Anima at this point is representing James's lower self. She is bound to the bed frame like Mary was. If James continues on with this, he will be bound forever as well. So Maria needs to die. The ghost of Mary, bound to that bed, that haunts James, needs to die. The false part of Anima needs to go for James to be free. It is also good to note that at this point of the game, James possesses the great knife, which Pyramid had used. So he already started to integrate his shadow self. He still has lustful or bestial desires, but he no longer projects them to outside. Take a look at what James says in this cutscene.
I was weak. That's why I needed you. Needed someone to punish me for my sins. But that's all over now. I know the truth. Now it's time to end this.
He acknowledges what he was and what he did. He acknowledges the projection of Maria onto his dead wife. After defeating Pyramid Heads, James hears a conversation he had with Mary, and we can see how hard it must have been on him. Mary was yelling at James because she didn't want to be in the hospital. She is in pain because she wants to live. She has desires too, and she also realizes how much damage she is doing to James, but she can't stop herself either. Dying is one thing, but being alone and dying is quite another. After this memory, James climbs the stairs for a final showdown. Just before the last boss battle, you encounter Maria for one final time. But obviously this depends on which ending you have got. In the best ending, James finally rejects Maria.
Mary's dead. You killed her.
Maria? It's you. But I don't need you anymore.
And Maria tries one last attempt to trick James into staying in Silent Hill with her. She says that she could be his and she will be there for him forever and ever. and that she will never yell at him or make him feel bad.
But I can be yours. I'll be here for you forever. And I'll never yell at you or make you feel bad. That's what you wanted.
Trying to cater to his emotions from back when Mary was still alive. James rejects and the final battle starts. In this battle you fight a zombie-like woman, again upside down, bound to what looks like a bed frame. This is the final battle for James's release. There are 4 main endings in Silent Hill 2, and one of them is named Maria ending. This ending, in my opinion, is the scariest ending out of the 4. James accepts the fact that he's okay with his illusion. Remember when I said how it can pull you in until you can't get out? And how your psyche repeats itself for you to understand and move on? Well, in this ending, James does not move on. He refuses to understand. He tries escaping his guilt by trying to forget about Mary and latching on to Maria. He tells Maria to be with him.
Maria,
What, James?
I want you. I want you with me.
Maria hands him a letter from Mary, signifying that this ending resolves nothing, and no matter how hard James tries, Mary will always haunt him. James becomes a denizen of the abyss himself, a prisoner to his own inner world, forever trapped in the never-ending fog of his life. The reason why I find this ending so disturbing is the last bit. While walking with Maria, she coughs, and James says,
You'd better do something about that cough.
his voice is so inhumane. He lost the parts of him that makes him human and emotional, or trying to. Well, thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you drew some parallels to your own life. Maybe there is something repeating itself in your own life yet to be resolved, or maybe it gave you some clarity about your situation in your current relationship. If nothing at all, I hope you enjoyed the video.